It has officially begun. The countdown clock that will determine the fate of the global silver market was quietly started 6 days ago, and the mainstream media completely missed it. While they were arguing about political theater, President Trump sat down in the Oval Office on January 14th and signed a document that effectively puts a death date on the free trade of silver. We are talking about the Section 232 Proclamation on Critical Minerals. Most people ignored this. They thought it was just boring trade bureaucracy. They thought it was about lithium or cobalt. They are wrong. If you read the fine print of the order, which we have, it targets processed critical minerals and their derivative products. In the eyes of the Department of Defense, refined silver is a processed critical mineral. It is the lifeblood of the aerospace and missile defense industry. The proclamation triggers a 180-day countdown. The clock started on January 14th, 2026. The clock stops on July 13th, 2026. What happens when the clock hits zero? The order directs the Department of Commerce and the USTR to negotiate voluntary export restraints, or quotas, with foreign adversaries. If those negotiations fail, and they will fail because China is not going to kneel, the President has authorized the implementation of import restrictions, tariffs, and quotas to protect national security. This is the silver curtain. For 40 years, we have relied on cheap, refined silver flowing from overseas to feed the COMEX and suppress the price. Trump just signed the order to cut that flow off. The market is only just starting to react because the smart money has spent the last week digesting the legalese. They realize that in 180 days, the U.S. border could be closed to foreign silver. Imagine what happens to the COMEX, which has almost zero registered inventory left, when you tell them that no new metal is allowed to enter the country. This is not a trade war, this is a resource siege. The 180-day countdown is the time you have left to secure your position before the supply chain is bifurcated by executive decree. The silence you hear right now is the calm before the supply shock. To understand why this 180-day countdown is lethal for the short sellers, you have to understand the weapon Trump just loaded. It is called Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. This is the nuclear option of trade law. It allows the president to restrict imports without Congress, without a vote, solely based on a national security threat. And make no mistake, silver is a national security issue. The Commerce Department's investigation, which led to this order, found that the U.S. is dangerously dependent on foreign adversaries for the processing of critical minerals. China processes over 80% of the world's strategic metals. They control the refining capacity. Even if we mine silver in Mexico or Peru, much of the complex refining and concentrate processing flows through Chinese-controlled supply chains or is priced via mechanisms China influences. The deep state at the Pentagon is terrified. They ran the war games. They know that if China cuts off the supply of refined silver paste, the U.S. cannot build Tomahawk missiles, advanced torpedoes, the next-gen fighter jets, satellite guidance systems. So, the 180-day countdown is an ultimatum to the world. Give us secure American-controlled supply chains or we lock the doors. But here's the trap for the bankers. The bullion banks, J.P. Morgan, Citi, rely on the global flow of silver to manage the price. They lease metal from London. They swap metal from Shanghai. They move inventory across borders to put out fires wherever the price is rising. Trump's order threatens to illegalize that flow. If you place a quota on silver imports, you destroy the arbitrage mechanism. You destroy the ability of the banks to flood the market with foreign metal to smash the price. This is deglobalization in its most violent form. The 180-day clock is ticking down to the moment where the U.S. silver market becomes an island. And on an island with high demand and no new supply, prices do not go up linearly. They go vertical. The smart money sees this coming. They are using this 6-month window to hoard. They are front-running the executive order. They know that on July 14th, 2026, the rules of the game change forever. The global spot price will die. We will have a U.S. national security price, high, and a Chinese price, higher. Let's visualize the deadline, July 13th, 2026. This is the date the negotiations are due. This is the date the hammer drops. What happens if China refuses to sign a voluntary export restraint? What happens if Mexico, under pressure from BRICS, refuses to guarantee supply quotas to the U.S.? The president invokes the authority to impose quotas. A quota is worse than a tariff. A tariff is a tax. You can pay it and still get the metal. A quota is a hard cap. You can only import 10 million ounces this year. Once the quota is filled, the border closes. Zero metal enters. Imagine the panic on the COMEX. The shorts are naked. They need metal to deliver. Suddenly, a press release comes out. Import quota reached. U.S. border closed to silver imports. The supply goes to zero instantly. but the demand from Tesla, Raytheon, and the US Mint is still there. This creates a super squeeze. The domestic miners, Hekla, Kur, suddenly become the only game in town. They become strategic assets. Their silver isn't worth spot, it's worth survival. This is the silver curtain descending. It divides the world into friendly silver and enemy silver. Friendly silver, US, Canada, will trade at a massive premium. Enemy silver, China, Russia, will be locked out. The 180-day countdown is the grace period. It is the time the government has given industry to prepare. But industry isn't preparing, they are panicking. We are seeing off-market deals accelerating. The big tech companies are trying to sign long-term contracts with US miners now, before the deadline hits. They want to lock in supply before the quota system goes live. This is draining the free float. By the time the clock hits 0 in July, there will be no silver left in the public market. It will all be contracted to the military-industrial complex. You, the retail stacker, are competing against the Department of Defense for the last few ounces of American silver. The inevitable result of this 180-day countdown is the bifurcation of the silver price. We have talked about this in theory, but Trump's order makes it law. We will see two prices for silver. Price 1, the global paper price. This is the zombie price on the COMEX screen. It might stay managed at $80 or $90 for a while. The banks will play their games with existing derivatives. Price 2, the secure North American price. This is the price for physical metal that is actually inside the U.S. border and compliant with Section 232. This price will detach. It will trade at a 50%, 80%, maybe 100% premium to the paper price. Why? Because of chain of custody. Under the new rules, if you are a defense contractor, you can't just buy silver. You have to prove it didn't come from a foreign adversary. You need American silver. This effectively demonetizes Chinese bars inside the U.S. If you hold a bar refined in China, it might become illiquid in the official market. But if you hold a Silver Eagle, a bar mined in Nevada, that is strategic gold, metaphorically. This bifurcation destroys the liquidity of the banks. Their short positions are based on a global pool of metal. But if they can't deliver Chinese metal to satisfy a U.S. contract, their pool shrinks by 60%. They are squeezed into a smaller and smaller room. The 180-day countdown is the sound of the walls closing in. The banks know they can't cover their shorts using American metal. There isn't enough of it. They relied on imports. And Trump just signed the eviction notice for those imports. So what does this mean for you? It means you have a 6-month window and 1 week is already gone. During this 180-day countdown, the market will be chaotic. The banks might try to smash the price one last time to cover before the deadline, or the industrial panic might start early, sending prices vertical before July. But once that deadline hits, July 13, 2026, the unobtainium phase becomes permanent. If quotas are implemented, or if tariffs are jacked up to 100%, the flow of cheap retail silver ends. The premiums we see now, $10, $15, will look like a joke. We could see premiums exceed the spot price. We could see a scenario where you simply cannot buy silver unless you are an authorized purchaser with a government license. This is not fear-mongering. This is reading the executive order. It prioritizes national security. It does not prioritize retail stackers. The government wants the metal for missiles, not for your safe. If you are sitting on cash, waiting for a dip, wake up. The President of the United States just initiated a trade war over the very asset you are trying to buy. He gave the world a 6-month warning. The world is listening. China is hoarding. Industry is hoarding. What are you doing? Here's your battle plan for the next 174 days. 1. Secure North American physical. Prioritize coins and bars that are recognized as friendly. U.S. Mint, Eagles, Royal Canadian Mint, Maples. These will carry the strategic premium when the bifurcation hits. Avoid generic bars with obscure origins if you can. You want metal that is unquestionably inside the blue wire of the Western supply chain. 2. The miner pivot, domestic leverage. This executive order is the holy grail for North American miners, Hekla, Kur, First Majestic. These companies have assets in the U.S. and Canada and Mexico, which is part of USMCA. Their metal is the only metal that will be quota-free. They will trade at a massive premium to global miners. Wall Street hasn't priced this in yet. They see silver miner. They don't see strategic defense contractor. But that is what they are becoming. Rotate capital into these specific, jurisdictionally safe miners. 3. Watch the countdown. Mark July 13, 2026 on your calendar. But do not wait for that date. The panic will start weeks, maybe months before the deadline. The smart money fronts the news. By June, the shelves could already be bare. 4. The ratio exit. We stick to the plan. We ride this national security squeeze until the gold to silver ratio hits 30 or 15. Then we swap. We trade the volatile, restricted strategic asset, silver, for the monetary constant, gold. But for the next 6 months, silver is the play. It is the eye of the storm. The verdict: Trump quiet signed the order. The clock is ticking. The 180-day countdown is the fuse. The explosion is the bifurcation of the global silver market. The banks are trapped on the wrong side of the border. You need to be on the right side. The markets are only starting to react. When they fully wake up to what Section 232 means for supply, it's game over. Hold the line. Class dismissed.